hello and welcome to this very special end of year edition to the Profit with Law podcast. I'm super excited about the fact that, hey, 2024 is in the rearview mirror, and the next time that we're going to be meeting and speaking with each other, it's going to be 2025. And with a brand new year comes brand new beginnings. But when we look at forging ahead and looking at what are we going to do next, it's extremely important that we look back and say, how did we do in the past? And that's what we do here on the podcast as well for you. So what I did was had the team compile the top downloaded episodes for 2024. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically just tell you what they are and share a snippet of that conversation. Each one can be gone back and listened to on its own. So here we go with our first one. The key to scaling your law firm, implementing an operating system with Sharon Means, episode 449. This can be found at profitwithlaw.com/449. All of those links are going to be in the show notes at the bottom of your podcast player, or as well at profitwithlaw.com. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast player, you should also know that we simulcast everything to YouTube, and you can find our YouTube channel at profitwithlaw.com/YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, then you might want to be able to plug into us while you're driving, running, taking a shower, washing the dishes, any of those other things when you're not going to be watching video. And for that, you're going to want to jump into your favorite podcast player and subscribe to our show. And you can do that at profitwithlaw.com/podcast. All right, let's talk about our episode with Sharon Means. Sharon Means is a CPA, seasoned fractional integrator with extensive experience as a CFO and advisor, specializing in aligning operations strategy for accounting, law, and technology professional services firms. And in this episode, we had a wonderful conversation about building a stronger and more efficient law firm through data-driven strategies and systems. We explored the importance of defining your core values, implementing business scorecards, and using the entrepreneurial operating system, EOS, to streamline operations and foster growth. Sharon also shared practical advice on hiring aligned team members, customizing your approach, and focusing on the metrics that matter most. So if you're going into 2025 and you're thinking, hey, I know that I need to expand my team. We need to get more organized. I need to be able to measure KPIs, build out scorecards. Definitely a conversation you want to go back and listen to. And again, you can get that at profitwithlaw.com/449.
When somebody is just exiting being a solo, they're starting to add staff. So they're adding support staff. They're bringing an attorney on. That's starting to happen. They're wearing both the visionary and the integrator hat, right? Like they're doing everything.
Absolutely.
What is the biggest challenge that you're finding, and what is like the first place that you end up going to solve when you're coming into a business at that stage?
So I would say when you're hiring, you need to be very intentional, and it's very difficult when you're a solopreneur and you're hiring, but you want to kind of this is going to set up your culture, your firm. So you want to be very intentional, and you want to almost, you call it core values, and come up with them. And I know it sounds silly because you're one person, but come up with your core values and come up with the things that you feel are important for your hires, because a lot of my time is spent with what we call right people, right seats. So you hire in somebody because, oh my gosh, a friend of a friend knew that they were looking and they seemed good, so you just hired them. And then 2 years later, you find that that was a bad culture hire, that they aren't going to fit for what you want. They aren't, the work ethic isn't there, or, just they aren't used to working in a small firm, all the things that, and so right people, right seat means the right person culturally, also in the right seat, also in the right position. Little accountability chart is what we call it, and everyone's in their own little box. And I know it's hard when you're first starting out, because like you said, the owner is probably a visionary, the integrator, the marketer, the salesperson handling the accounting. But at some point you want to scale it. So you want to know where to go with that. So you want to start putting people where they make sense, and not just because it's convenient that, your sister-in-law can do the books. Well, she might, but you also want to make sure that you can grow and you can scale. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you went there. We have a great core values exercise to prompt you with coming up with
perfect.
your core values that we do
Yeah.
with our coaching clients.
Oh,
And what we'll do is
excellent.
I'll have my team link that up in the show notes so that you can
Oh, very
download
cool.
that
Yeah.
and go through it, where I walk you through, how like just almost like a prompt list of values,
Yeah.
and you're selecting which ones you resonate with, and then
Yeah.
we're like breaking them down into categories, and you can come up with your top 5 core values from there. What we do with our hiring process, and I did cover this in a podcast episode a long, long time ago, back in 2019. It's called "What's Your Hiring Process?" I don't remember the episode number, but my team will find it. They'll link it up in
I
the
was
show
going to
notes.
say, let's link that because that's a good one.
We will link that up in the show notes. So, in "What's Your Hiring Process?" I go through this concept that you want the right seat. I'm sorry, the right fit in this right fit, right seat mentality, right?
Yep.
And one of the ways you can do that is just have your candidate do the same exact exercise you're going to do. Have them go through
Oh,
the core values exercise and submit their 5 core values to you. What we're looking for is we're looking for at least 2 core values to overlap.
interesting.
2 or 3, and
Okay.
that's enough, that there's enough alignment between us that we can get you to adopt our other 2 core values. If we've got nothing in common, or we only got 1 core value in common, there's probably too big of a divide to get you to come on board and really embrace our entire core value system. And we've actually turned away potential employee candidates because the core values didn't match.
Yeah.
And
And you
what that's
saved yourself a lot of time and money because, once you onboarding and having an employee costs a lot of money. So that's a great idea. I'm going to steal that because that is absolutely amazing. Because it's hard people say, well, how do you hire for a core value? So I can ask you, you know, what's a challenge that's happened in your life and how did you get over it? Well, most people are pretty good at like figuring out how to answer the interview questions. I mean, if they're not, that's a red flag right there. But
right.
that's really cool of having them come up with their own core values and matching them because then it really is, genuine.
Yeah, and we do that so early on in the hiring process because we don't want to waste our efforts
Mm-hmm. Yep.
on somebody who just doesn't fit with us culturally. Like,
Right.
if you fit with us culturally and we go through the interview process and you're a great fit for a different seat, and if I'm willing to hire for that seat, I'll put you in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which we had recently, right? And this was not big hires. These were 2 international VAs. We interviewed a bunch of them, and we were looking to fill a particular seat in our accounting department. So for our tax business, and we had 2 really good candidates who came to the finish line. We really liked them both. We used the Kobe assessment,
Okay.
and
Yep.
the Kobe assessment is part of how we decide if they're in the right seat.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of them matched really well in the Kobe and the other one did not. And I said, 1 second, I think that this person will match really well with our customer service and our sales department. So we compared their Kobe score to that department, and there they matched really well. So, and just for those of you who don't know Kobe,
Yeah.
basically the manager of the department or the person they're going to be directly reporting to takes an assessment. It's called the C assessment. The candidate takes the A. You're able to match the A and the C for what they call a right fit, and you get a
Mm-hmm.
letter grade. We're looking for a B, B plus or better. B minus or worse, probably not good. We might, if we have a really strong candidate we really like and they're a B minus, we might push it. But anything less than that, and it's a no, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
just I'm going to save myself a lot of time and effort down the road by just not putting them in this role. And it doesn't mean they're not a good person. It just means that they're not gonna do well in that role specifically.
I tell
Um,
people, they always say, right seat, right? I tell people because they'll say, well, I like them. Well, I like lots of people, but that doesn't mean that they're in the right seat. So you typically do not run into somebody who's just an awful individual. I mean, there are, but by and large, it's usually the seat issue more than they're just not a good person. So yeah, like you said, could be, that they could work out somewhere else. They're not bad people, but it's just not a right fit for what you're looking for.
Okay, the second podcast episode that we want to highlight here is a best of episode. So best of episodes are already, and there's a little bit meta, right? Because our team is going back and looking in the archives and saying which are our best episodes, and then we kind of re-release it into the public to bring it back to your attention. What happens is a lot of times, people haven't been listening to the show since its inception. We started recording in March of 2019, so we've been doing this for a little while. And there's a lot of episodes there, 450 plus episodes out in the archives. So we go and we pull something, we dust it off, make it a best of. So this is a best of episode that was released this year or re-released this year. Conversation with Craig Goldenfarb, building the seven-figure attorney mindset and reality with Craig Goldenfarb, and it's episode 424. It can be accessed at profitwithlaw.com/424. Craig is an amazing person. I got to meet him in person. He does these events once a year called the Seven Figure Attorney or something like that. And it's a small, intimate setting experience where he spends an entire day and just basically opens up his business to you to basically show you how he's doing things and how he was successful. So you can emulate him and kind of mimic what he's done to create your own success. Really interesting experience, but more importantly, an amazing all-around person. And I love his focus on really doing what he loves and making people on his team happy and making their life experience amazing. So really sounds like a great place to go to work. Craig's the CEO of a 20-year personal injury law firm and over 70 employees and 12 attorneys, known for running his firm like a business and speaking nationally on law firm management. So in this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Craig. He's mastered the art of turning a legal practice into a thriving business. Craig shares his insights on the critical mindset shift from being a lawyer to becoming a business owner. And I love that particular nuance because it's really the front runner of everything that I'm trying to bring to market right now, which is really the getting you to truly understand the difference between a business owner and an attorney. Because when that click happens, when that shift happens in your mind and you see yourself as an investor, an entrepreneur, a business owner, it changes the way that you make decisions. Anyway, Craig and I had a great conversation around this. He shared his insights on the critical mindset shift needed, the difference between growth and scaling, and why a positive work culture is essential for long-term success. We did an in-person event for our elite group, which I'll talk about that in a second. And we invited Craig to come and do a session and speak to them. And that was their favorite session of the 2-day experience, really. So love what Craig has to share. I really encourage you to go back and listen to episode 424. But we've got a snippet of that conversation here for you today to listen to. But before we kick that off, let me just quickly tell you about Law Firm Growth Elite. What is it? What do we do there? And how can you find out more if you're interested, especially now going into 2025? You're right at the beginning of a brand new year. We can basically dust things off and hope for better traction, success, or growing on the positive momentum we've already created in 2024. Our Law Firm Growth Elite program is basically a small group coaching program, intimate. You get a lot of personal attention. It's intended very specifically for solo to beyond solo law firms. So basically when you're near the maxed out version of solo. So you're making $250 or more in revenue annually, and you're trying to figure out or navigate that growth from there to $1 to $2 million in revenue. And that period of growth is a very, very specific period. It requires very specific decisions to be made. And most people spend a lot of time in that area. So when you get to that maxed out solo place, you're in this really weird place where you're not quite successful enough to be able to bring on staff, but at the same time, you're out of time. You don't really have the bandwidth to bring on more business. So you're in this quandary or this place that you just can't seem to get enough momentum. You're moving the needle a little bit, but you can't make that big stride forward. And that's the thing that we really help our clients conquer and accomplish, is to figure out how to take that big next jump forward. And we believe and we help our clients do that in 12 months or less. And our guarantee to them is we'll help you double your take-home pay in 12 months, or we work for free for you. In other words, you stay in the program for as long as you need until you get there. But we really want you to get these massive results. And if that's something that's interesting to you, if I just described you and you're interested in learning more about what this might look like, go to profitwithlaw.com/strategy session, I think is the URL. If I'm wrong, it'll be corrected in the show notes below. Profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. And what we will do is basically have a 30-minute call with you to discuss your specific law firm, your specific barriers to growth, and help you to create a game plan for moving forward. And if at the end of that conversation it sounds like working with us is something that makes sense for you, then we can turn that conversation into talking about entry into the program. But regardless, we want you to walk away from there with an action plan and knowing exactly how you're going to execute moving forward. So here's that episode, or a snippet of that episode with Craig Goldenfarb.
One of the biggest things that I hear coming from my clients is, they don't teach business in law school. And it's almost gotten to a point where attorneys are using it as a defensive flag of saying, this is why I'm not successful, rather than trying to figure out how to fix that problem and educate themselves on becoming somebody who's educated in business. And I'll even say this, I have an MBA and I went through all the classes needed to become an MBA, and there's zero that was taught about running a small business when you go for your MBA. So going to business school probably wouldn't have prepared you for running a law firm anyway. So what's the solution for somebody who's, I don't know how to run a business, but I want to run my own law firm?
Well, I think the first step, it's a great question. I think the first step is your mindset. I mean, there's a great book, by Carol Dweck called Mindset. And it's one of the first books I read when I was thinking about becoming a businessman, which is just to have a mindset that you want to learn. And I find that a lot of lawyers, it's kind of weird. We think of ourselves as professionals instead of businessmen because we're taught from an early age how special we are. And we're not special. We're just happen to have a good brain and happen to be lucky enough to go to law school and enter into a good career. So if you have a mindset that you want to continuously learn, I mean, I'm, middle-aged dude. I still go to 3, 4, 5 seminars a year. I still pick up a few morsels at each seminar. And I think that's how I started my career, and that's how I'm ultimately going to end my career, is that you don't want to stop learning. So, if you want to learn business, start reading books, start becoming a member of organizations or courses such as yours, Moshe, where everyone's into learning and collaborating and helping. So the fact that I had a father-in-law that taught me some of this stuff was definitely very helpful. But at that time, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have Facebook groups. We didn't have anything in the late 1990s. I just had my father-in-law, and there weren't that many seminars. So the fact that these days, for someone who's young, there's so many opportunities, so many knowledge resources, so many Facebook groups and seminars. I don't think it's that difficult. I think if you go to all these groups and really immerse yourself in the organizations that teach, that it's just as good as having a mentor or a tribe of mentors, as the book. There's a book called Tribe of Mentors. So, having a tribe of mentors is really easy these days.
Yeah, and I think it's bringing up the fact that it's really easy is something that we should caution our listeners about, because you kind of need to make a decision about who your mentor is going to be or who your group of mentors are going to be. But it's easy to get torn in different directions and actually be given different messages from the different mentors that are out there. And there isn't a right or wrong. way. One of the reasons that I went into the legal community and said, here, I'm going to teach you how to grow your business. I'm going to teach, I mean, we call this podcast Profit with Law, right? So many people were focusing on top line revenue. How do I get my revenue to be, I want to be $1 million firm. If you're focusing on being $1 million firm, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Focus on how you can take home 250,000. And when you figure that out, you'll probably be $1 million firm. But the problem is that we're focusing on the wrong number. So a lot of attorneys who are teaching other attorneys how to do it, they came into the marketplace saying, here's how I did it. I'm going to show you how to do it. And that doesn't work for everybody. So that's really where I started, working with lawyers, is to say, hey, I didn't do it. I'm not an attorney. I understand business. And I'm going to, no matter what practice area you're in, no matter what business you're in, I'm going to show you how a business is run. I'm going to show you what's important, and we're going to focus on that. And I think that really it's, what you're said about mindset and being willing to learn is ultra important, but also recognizing that you can go the hard way. You can try to figure these things out yourself and learn from your own mistakes, or you can join somebody who can be in your corner, who can be your coach, who can help you to see the things that you're not seeing and give you some sort of success path that you can follow, so that you're not figuring it all out on your own. So I love that as the first stepping stone. Now you have a brand, the 7-Figure Attorney, and I know I just pooped on it, right? Because that's talking about, that's probably focused on top line revenue, right? And I didn't mean to do that. But what do you think is the makings of a 7-figure attorney? What do you think that they need to, somebody who's not there, right? Maybe they're at 300,000 in revenue, 500,000 in revenue. What do they need to overcome or figure out or understand to unlock the potential of being a 7-figure attorney?
Well, it's funny because you're right. I named it that, the 7-Figure Attorney, because that's what most people come into the learning process thinking they want. They want a 7-figure firm, but what they don't know is the building blocks that it takes to get there. So I named it, even knowing that just getting to that revenue goal doesn't necessarily mean anything. But when I was young, when I was 25, 27, 28, or when I started my firm at age about 30, that was my first goal. I didn't realize that in order to do that, you had to create a work culture, you had to hire the right people, you had to figure out business structure and organization and all of the building blocks. So you're 100% right. The fact that I'm at 7 figures or now multiple 8 figures doesn't matter if your profit percentage is 2%. It doesn't really matter what your gross is. So the key to me starts with the learning, and then realizing that you're a business, and realizing that there are fundamental building blocks, just like you said, Moshe, for any business, of the things that are in traction. There's 5 parts of every business, and if you realize those 5 or 6 pieces of the pie, no matter whether you're selling plumbing equipment or legal services, that you realize that all businesses are the same. So once you realize that it's really kind of formulaic, and once you get that and get the same pieces for every type of business, then you'll really start to be able to grow and scale to any size at all.
All right, I hope you loved that conversation with Craig Goldenfarb. Well, guess what? Here's another one with Charley Mann. And what is happening here? There's a certain theme. You guys are eating up, loving this content that's around changing from that attorney, that law firm owner who is approaching their business from client service, and this is what I do, I'm a lawyer, to I am a business owner. So episode 412, how to shift your identity from attorney to law firm owner with Charley Mann, is the next episode that is one of our top download episodes in 2024. And it's no surprise, because Charley Mann is an amazing person, recently ventured out on his own to build his own coaching practice to help law firm owners grow and expand. And he's a coach, strategist for entrepreneurial law firm owners, helps owners transform their law firms into wealth generation and lifestyle vehicles while growing as leaders along the way. And in this episode, I sat down with Charley Mann to tackle one of the biggest challenges law firm owners face, which is transitioning from being a lawyer to truly embracing the role of an entrepreneur. And we kind of covered that in the intro to the last one, where I introed Craig Goldenfarb in his episode. And, Charley and I had a more boots on the ground conversation in this episode. So I encourage you to go back and listen to it. I love the insight that he shared, and you can find it at profitwithlaw.com/412. Don't stop your car to write down that URL. We've got you covered. It's in the show notes below this episode, or at profitwithlaw.com. All right, where were we? So, biggest challenge law firm owners face: transitioning from being a lawyer to truly embracing the role of an entrepreneur. Charley shares his powerful insights on overcoming fear and resistance, taking bold risks, and the freedom that comes with owning and growing your law firm as a business. Really encourage you to go and listen to that. Charley has been a speaker at our Law Firm Growth Summit. He's been here on the podcast as well. And when I'm out on social, I'm always really excited about the stuff that he's sharing, what's going on in his world with his people. But once again, I spoke about it before. If you're interested in making 2025 a different year for you, and you're stuck in this place of a maxed out solo, trying to figure out how to get to that next level, definitely book a strategy session with us, profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. Again, that's linked up in the show notes to the episode.
Charley, you've been working with some people. You've been working with them one-on-one. I actually don't do a lot of one-on-one because my experience with one-on-one was that my clients would think the coaching call was when the work was done, and it's really the work in between the calls, right? So I found it difficult to get them to do that. But in a group setting, they kind of have to keep up with the pack. So that's why I do group coaching. I love that you're doing one-on-one because I love working one-on-one with people. I just felt like I had a better impact in a group environment. But you're working with some law firm owners, and they've achieved some level of success, right? What are you finding today being the biggest challenge for those firms that are, between the million and 3 million mark of revenue? I know that up until 750, probably the biggest challenge is I got to find clients, right?
Absolutely. Always.
You figured that piece out, and now you've got clients coming in, you've got your marketing down, and you want to grow beyond yourself, right? What's the biggest challenge that happens in that space?
So this is what I love is like what I'm going to share here is going to be utterly not revolutionary, except for the few people who need to hear this message at this exact moment, right? And let's be honest, Moshe, that's 90% of the work that we do. Is it's not completely reinventing the wheel. It's finding people who are ready for it, which, by the way, marketing lesson in and of itself. But the big thing is boiled down to a single word: identity. How do you identify in this world? A lot of clients, when they come to me, what they're grappling with is they are currently a lawyer who happens to own a law firm. And we're working towards and they don't necessarily know how to articulate it, but I also like to say a lot of people, when they start with me, whether it's one-on-one or in the new program, the Genesis Mastermind program that I have, when they're starting with me, it's usually because they're at a point of transition. And that transition is sometimes conscious, and sometimes it's subconscious, or sometimes it's misappropriated. It's okay, I think I'm in a sense of transition because I want more revenue in my firm, when in fact it's actually that they're dealing with the issue of, I don't want to go to trial anymore. I'm actually not excited by that at this point. And I think that revenue initially solves that problem, except they're actually tying themselves to generating the revenue as a trial lawyer instead of moving away from it. So coaching identity and saying, how do we move you from being a lawyer who owns a law firm to being an entrepreneur? How do we build your entrepreneurial skill set? And so this is where it also becomes a practical exercise of helping firm owners, because if you help them, and I know that you do this as well, when you help them build their skill set, their marketing skill set, their leadership skill set, and those are the first two that we really focus on, but then also figuring out how to be a better manager, sort of developer of systems, how to be a better financial officer for your firm. And, it's just enough information to get the job done, but go find professionals to really help you out in some of these spaces. When you start building that skill set, now you can drop into that identity in a deeper way. They're afraid of it at first because it seems like this gigantic pool of unknown information. And they don't want to dive into that because they're in the warm, comfortable waters of, I know what it's like to be a lawyer, and I'm okay running a firm where there's either cash in the bank or there's not a lot of cash in the bank. And if there's not a lot of cash in the bank, now I'll try and figure out how to solve that problem. An entrepreneur doesn't want that problem. An entrepreneur wants a business where cash in the bank is a reflection of all the other work that they are doing to have a humming organization. And they're not afraid of the balance sheet because it's one of their tools that they use in running a great business. So by working on building that skill set, and by working on, here's how you take actions as an entrepreneur and holding you accountable to those actions, now that identity starts to shift. And the number of clients that I have who work with me and within a year basically say, hey, Charlie, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I don't think I want to be a lawyer anymore. Right? I'm like, I love that. I love that for you. I'm so excited. That's why we're doing this work. Maybe you didn't know that was why we were doing this work, but that is why we're doing this work. And so then we can have them own a business, and that's far more exciting.
Yeah, I think ultimately, like, probably 90% of the law firms, and I just threw that number out there, by the way, that like 96% of statistics are made up. So I think that by and large, the majority of law firm owners out there start their firm because they don't want to be a lawyer anymore. And they don't realize that. I mean, it's not really the real reason, right? They want that impact. They want that, more time, more money. But the way to get more time, more money is to not be a lawyer. The way to create more impact is to have a bunch of lawyers working for you, right? Because that's going to create impact on the team side. It's going to create impact on how many clients can I serve side, right? So all of the reasons, all of the domains of why I would start a firm all point away from practicing law and being the business owner. So I think that deep down, everybody knows that, but they have a hard time actually walking the walk.
All right, you ready for more? Here we go. This is number 4 of our top 5 downloaded episodes in 2024. And this is with one of my most favorite people in the world, Jordan Ostroff. And I love Jordan because, love him because he's amazing and just that, right? But I love what he's out there sharing, and he's out there sharing an insight or a little vision into his life and his life. I mean, he's basically, he's got his son Benji, who he talks about publicly, but his focus is on his wife, his son, their business, but he's clearly not an active player in the business in the way that you and I are probably active in our business, right? And how has he done that, and how has he structured his life? So really love what he's sharing, and he has a new show out. So definitely go check it out on YouTube. Oh geez, I should have looked this up before I shared it. What's the name of the show? We'll come back and share that with you in just a moment. So it's called The Laid Back Life, and laid is LEI''D, The Laid Back Life, and it's on YouTube. It's a new show that Jordan started where he's interviewing people about basically living your best life, and that's really what Jordan's all about. And I actually was interviewed. I don't know how that came out. I was in Israel. In true form with The Laid Back Life. I was in Israel at my daughter's, who had given birth to a grandson of mine. And yes, this has been an impactful year for me, 2024, the year of the grandpa. And I not only became a grandfather this year, but had 3 grandbabies. So I have a granddaughter and 2 grandsons. I'm really excited about the growth of my family and proud of my daughters actually for the way that they've built their lives and are starting out as young parents. But in this episode, How to Create a Law Firm You Love with Jordan Ostroff, episode 445. You can capture the entire episode at profitwithlaw.com/445. Jordan is the CEO of Driven Law, author of Love Your Law Firm, and founder of Carpe Diem Consulting, dedicated to helping lawyers build thriving firms and fulfilling lives, all while balancing family, community involvement, and his passion for mentoring others. Really excited for you to take an insight and, follow Jordan on social and just kind of see, some of the things that he's doing. Go listen to The Laid Back Life. He's pulling back the curtain on what he does. And there's a lot of structure there, right? It's very, very purposeful. Specific days of the week that he's working, specific days of the week that he's not working, things like that. So really great stuff that he's talking about on his show. But on our show, we talked about creating a roadmap to the law firm that you always wanted, and how to build a law firm that not only thrives financially, but also brings you joy and fulfillment. We dove into the importance of work-life balance, efficient time management, and the mindset shift necessary to grow a successful, sustainable law firm. And we're going to grab a snippet of that conversation and play it for you here. But if you want the entire conversation, go to profitwithlaw.com/445. Here is Jordan Ostroff and I in a conversation. I love that you open the book with that, to just kind of like, hey, look, you got to do some deep search and say, hey, do I want to be the owner of a firm? In other words, do I want to be a business owner? And if the answer is yes, then what, Jordan?
Well, then you start getting intentional about what that looks like. I love the analogy that Gina Wickman uses in Rocket Fuel, where he talks about that visionary and integrator as two puzzle pieces. Here, I think you're more the center puzzle, and you get to design the entire rest of those pieces around you. But if you're not intentional about what you want, you have no idea what to say yes to and in what order, and what to say no to, and when things that didn't make sense 2 years ago do make sense now. So you have to be intentional.
Okay, so you want to own your firm, you get intentional with how you're building your firm. What allows you to cross into that divide, the other side of the divide, where I'm loving my firm? Is it just executing and putting the right pieces in place so that now things are happening? Like what's the magic formula to getting to the love your law firm part?
So listen, if you are designing your firm from scratch, it's a little bit different. So I think most of the people listening to this have a firm in some manner. So look, for right now, you are acting reactively. You are reacting to the situations. You have to make sure you make cash flow. You have to make sure you get everything done before the court deadlines. You have to get all these things done. So what we need to do is we need to take some extra time and start building proactively. Now we can get ahead. We can build systems in advance of hiring people so that they have an easier transition. We can design your week proactively instead of you just having to open up your email at 9 o'clock in the morning and respond to every fire. That proactive part, that's where you're going to start to find the love of your firm, because you can actually do things in advance of the outcomes, whereas reactively, you're just trying to avoid the negatives. Here we can work towards the positives.
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting because your focus on that side of the conversation is on their time. And what's interesting is that my background, I'm a money guy, right? My financial background, and my focus is on the financial resources. So there's two resources that we have available to us and in our firm: time and money. And they're both finite. And if we recognize that the key to business is creating more time and creating more money, like that is what business is all about. Now, how do you create more time? It's not just time management, which I think we're going to jump into and talk about. It's buying the time of others. When you hire a staff member, you're essentially buying 40 hours a week from them, or whatever the work week looks like for you. And you're adding that to your inventory of time available for legal services and whatever else your firm does. And then money, when you are selling your services, you're bringing money in the door, and hopefully you're paying your people and all of the other expenses less than the money coming in. And and the difference is where you make money. So you might only be able to make a certain amount of money off of selling your paralegal's time, but then you bring on an attorney and you can make even more off of that. And that's where like the leverage begins. And then the bigger your staff gets, in theory, if you're doing it right, then the more money you're making. And therefore, the more time you can buy if you want with that money, but also the more you get to enjoy the outcome of your business. And I think that this is something I'm really passionate about right now, which is most firm owners, and this is specifically for people who are still solo, right? Like if you're in that solo camp, it almost is a trap, right? Or it is a trap actually, which is you don't have enough time and you don't have enough money to create the next version of your firm. It's impossible. Like Clio Legal Trends report that gets released every year. They did one in 2019 or 2020 where they surveyed 2,000 solo firm owners. And the average solo firm owner is billing 2.1 hours a day and collecting 1.8 hours a day. Put that in contrast to an attorney on your staff. If you hire an associate, all they're doing is billable legal work. They should not be doing anything else. Everything else gets delegated to somebody else, right? If they're human and they take a lunch break and they have bathroom breaks and coffee breaks and whatever, we should be getting 6 hours a day of billable work out of them. That's not a stretch. That's not crazy. That's treating them like a normal person. They should be producing that for our firm. Well, that's 3 times what you can do as an attorney in your firm. 3 times. That means that if you think that you're going to be ready to hire somebody when you're doing a third of the work that they're going to do, financially, you'll never be ready for that. And that's the thing where like you have to have this shift. Like if I want to get somebody's time and I want to execute on that, and there has to be an investment made. And the investment's both time and money, right? Like Jordan is talking about, hey, you got to start taking time to be the owner of your business, but it's almost impossible when it's just you and you're fully booked for you to even think about taking an hour and working on your business, right? The faster that you can deploy another attorney in your firm, the faster you can deploy a paralegal, the faster you can deploy having somebody else do your marketing for you, the faster you're going to have the flexibility to be able to start having time to spend working on your business. Any thoughts on that, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, look, what is it? History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Is one of my favorite quotes that I had to take a second to remember. But like, it's like think of an assembly line. Your law firm is that car being made, and instead of having one person do everything the whole way down the line, people can take their spots in the chain. So you can focus on, let's say you love doing the consultation, so stay in sales, make some marketing vision, outsource that to a team, have lawyers and paralegals who can fulfill the work afterwards. And now you get that many more reps in the consultations. And now you have that much more effort to spend learning how to be a better salesperson instead of having, 15 minutes to read this one article on sales and having to stay up on case law and checking out every judge's specific rules to their courtroom for every motion you file. Like, there's just no way to do all of this. But by focusing, you can get that much better, and you can find people who are even better than you at some of the other parts that you get off your plate. And now the entire business is better. So now clients are happier, and you're happier, and the employees are happier because they're not doing 17,000 things for 2 seconds here and 15 minutes there and whatnot. It's so much better for everybody and society and your family and the clients. It's just wild.
All right, coming in at number 5, the last of the episodes we're going to share with you today is a conversation that I had with Gina Cotner, and this was called Beyond Billable Hours, Leveraging Executive Assistants for Law Firm Growth with Gina Cotner, episode 435. You can find the full-length version of that episode at profitwithlaw.com/435. Gina is the CEO of Athena Executive Services, a firm that connects skilled virtual executive assistants with busy entrepreneurs and executives to help them delegate tasks and focus on what matters most. And in this conversation, Gina and I discussed and had an exploration of the transformative power of support staff and effective delegation. Gina shared her journey from executive assistant to successful entrepreneur, revealing how leveraging virtual executive assistants can boost productivity, minimize non-billable work, and drive business growth. And I love that this is the last one that we're sharing with you, because ultimately there's two levers or two things that grow a law firm, and it is the people on your team, right? So it's basically hire good people to create capacity to serve, and then find ways to fill their plates. So basically go out and get clients, which is our marketing and our intake side of the business. If you can figure out how to find good people and put them to work in your business, that is going to create the leverage, the capacity that you need to grow. And then you just need to find a way of filling their plate. And I know it sounds simple, and it really is, right? We tend to overcomplicate business. Now, it's not to say that it's easy, but it is simple. And if all you do is decide, hey, I'm going to just do something to increase capacity, I'm going to hire somebody that's going to allow me to push more work through our business, whether it's a paralegal, whether it's a lawyer, or someone else who's going to get us out of a funk or out of being stuck. And then we're going to invest a little bit more or a lot more, depending on how much you're already investing, but invest more in making that phone ring in the marketing side. So check out the full-length episode at www.profitwithlaw.com/435. Here's a snippet of our conversation with Gina Cotner. Gina helps people get executive assistants or virtual assistants that are stateside, that are professionals, that have worked with CEOs, and they bring a different caliber of work. And that's the first thing that I want to help identify is, what is the difference between an international VA, I go to the Philippines, I pay somebody $5 an hour, versus I go and hire a stateside executive assistant and it costs me $60 an hour. Still a deal, right? Because we're ultimately, the reason we're bringing them on is to make somebody who's billing way more than $60 an hour way more productive. So we don't want to focus on the price tag, but it becomes very difficult to understand what is the person I need. And that's what I thought would be the most valuable for you guys today, is to have a conversation with Gina to understand when is the right time to evaluate somebody from Athena versus somebody in the Philippines or in Colombia.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great. Yeah, I always look at, like, what is the highest and best use? That's a phrase I use a lot. I want everybody to be used for their highest and best use. Because even if you have a long, hard day at work, if you're being used for what you were put here for, what you're great at, what you're passionate about, you go home a better human being than if you spent your day on hold with
Absolutely
IRS or the internet, your internet provider, or figuring out where to have mom's 75th birthday party, or booking the spring break for family of 4 that took half of your Saturday. What is the highest and best use? So I think one place people can start to look at is starting to look at what in their business is the repeatable tasks that they've got to do every time they sign a client, every time they meet with a client, every time they do billing, every time they what is all of that repeatable lather, rinse, repeat work you've just got to do just to have the opportunity to go do the thing you're really, really great at? I would just start that list, because that's going to start to indicate, well, where am I going to go find that? And like you said, we are 100% stateside. So what I have to offer you about the overseas and particularly the Philippine VA world is just anecdotal from people who have come to us and who have said, okay, I tried that, that didn't work. Or I tried that and it's working to this degree and it's not working in these other areas. Help. And so where we've seen it work and not work is when, like you said, a billing clerk, or maybe you need somebody to update your CRM or oversee your calendar, things that you don't think you're going to have a whole lot of contact or connection about. You're not going to have a whole lot of, well, wait, Allison, hold on just a second. This one's going to be unique. Or we got to talk through this process. Needing to connect with somebody to get something resolved can be a real challenge in the overseas world. Not even so much because of time zones. It used to be time zones, but my understanding is this massive VA industry in the Philippines literally does live our hours. They get up when we get up, they go to sleep when we go to sleep. So they've converted to that degree. But issue resolution, one-off situations are really challenging. Now, obviously, if you want people to craft an email on your behalf, let's just say communicate on your behalf to somebody who's important to you, you got to make sure they're a great communicator, verbally, written. That may or may not find that in the Philippines. Because we're all so used to, I can read an email and go, okay, this was written by somebody's VA. And that's not quite going to get me what I need. I think internet stability is also another factor that we hear about. Also, I would be concerned a little bit for cultural issues. So what do I mean by cultural issues? In some cultures, it's too shameful. It's too, I don't know what the word is, to come to you as my boss and say, you know what? I think I sent that email to the wrong person, or I think I just screwed something up. To have that transparency, it would be too shameful to come and admit that you made a mistake in some cultures. And that would be a real concern of mine, because I know what has my firm be high performing is that how transparent and safe it is to raise your hand and be like, hey, I need help with this. Hey, I need to learn this piece of software. Hey, I think I just messed something up, because then we can resolve something quickly. And I would be concerned that in certain cultures, things would be sort of brushed under the carpet. And maybe I'll hurry up and try to do it really well so you won't find out that we actually made a mistake. So those would be some of the concerns I would have. I would go stateside if you want more like what I call a shoulder to shoulder partner. Now they don't know the law, right? They don't know how to practice law, but they know how to work shoulder to shoulder with somebody in a high level business acumen kind of way. Like, okay, what are your goals for this quarter? I notice you keep saying we're going to be doing this and we never get to it. What can I do for that? You keep complaining about our whatever software. I'm going to go research that. That's a proactive business partner. That's why we call our people virtual executive assistants. So this interesting thing has started to happen, though. People have found VAs overseas that they like for certain things. And they've said to us recently, I'd just say in like the last 6 months in particular, they've been saying, I don't think I want to get rid of my VA. But would could that be my shoulder to shoulder partner so that I can really talk business at a high level with somebody? And then would one of your executive assistants go manage my VA? And we've said to ourselves, okay, well, that's interesting. Sure. We'll take the 20 things you need done and we can turn around and delegate 10 of them to your Philippine VA, because that really should be done for $6 an hour. And I'll be over here continuing to do the $50 to $60 an hour work. And the real critical looking, like, yes, you've got a calendar link and your calendar's filling up in this sort of automated, quick, easy way. But who's looking at it? Who's proofing it? And going, well, is that like a life that this person wants to live next week? Or is this a schedule they're just going to like survive? That takes the critical thinking that is worth paying for.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's a wrap. That is 5 episodes, our top 5 downloaded episodes in 2024. The most popular, our listeners have voted by listening with their ears. And we're super excited to have shared this with you. Once again, if you want to understand how 2025 can be your year, how this can be the year that you go from 200, 300,000 in revenue to $1 million, or from 700 to 2 million, whatever that jump is for you, you definitely book a strategy session with us at profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. And for those who are listening that are beyond the scope of that elite program that I've been talking about in this episode, if you are 3 million plus in revenue, and you're trying to unlock a different piece of growth, right? You're trying to unlock the actual payoff for building a larger law firm. You want your personal take-home pay to increase. You may need a fractional CFO in your firm. That is another service that we provide here at Profit with Law. And if that's the case, book a strategy session with us, and we'll go in that direction to see if there's something that we can do. We help people unlock a profit margin of somewhere in the 25 to 40% range. So most firms in these larger numbers, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million in revenue coming in the door into our fractional CFO world are running at a profit margin of somewhere between 10 and 15%. And if we can unlock even a 10% bump for you, and you're running at 5 million, well, that's $500,000 that we're unlocking in value for you right away in the first 12 months. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, you want to learn more about it, go ahead and book that same call with us, profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. And I'm super excited for what's up ahead in 2025. We're going to be announcing our upcoming Law Firm Growth Summit. You can already mark your calendars. It's going to be the first week of February, Tuesday through Thursday. Block your calendars for that. Registration is going to open shortly. You'll hear about that from my team. If you want to get on the wait list, go to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com. And Happy New Year, everybody. Next time we speak, it'll be 2025. Take care.